Bray Road runs through the rural farmland outside Elkhorn, a small city in Walworth County, Wisconsin. It winds past cornfields, woodlands, and the kind of open darkness that only exists far from city lights. For most of its history, it was just a road. Then people started seeing something on it. The road itself has become one of the most discussed locations in American cryptozoological history. And the question of what exactly people saw there has never been satisfactorily answered. What they described was not a bear, not a wolf, not a large dog that had wandered too far from home. It's something that stood upright on two legs, reached heights between 6 and 7 feet, carried thick gray-brown fur across a muscular body, and turned to look at them with eyes that glowed yellow or orange in the night. Something that could drop to all fours and disappear into the brush in seconds. Something that held food in its hands, palms facing upward, the way a person holds a plate. The creature would become known as the Beast of Bray Road. Its story spans nearly a century, from a quiet rural cemetery in Jefferson County in 1936 to sporadic sightings continuing in the present day. Perhaps even as we speak, the witnesses are from all walks of life: farmers, bartenders, teenagers, and even a former assistant district attorney. The first documented encounter goes back to 1936. Mark Shackleman was a night watchman in his 30s, employed at St. Coletta School for Exceptional Children, located on the grounds of a Franciscan convent near Jefferson, Wisconsin. The property contained large, open fields, an orchard, several old buildings, and a section of preserved Native American burial mounds. Shackleman walked the grounds every night as part of his routine. One evening, close to midnight, Shackleman crossed one of the open fields and noticed a shadow near one of the burial mounds. He drew closer with his flashlight. The shape was hunched over the mound, moving in the low, digging motion of a canine. But as Shackleman approached, the creature rose. It unfolded itself upright, standing well over 6 feet. Its body was covered in dark fur. Its face was long and wolfish. The stench in the air was overwhelming, described by Shackleman as the smell of rotting meat. He backed away, and the creature receded into the darkness. It returned the next night. This time it made a sound. Shackleman later described it as a half-human, half-animal growl, something that did not belong to any creature he knew. He never encountered it again after that. For decades, he shared the account with almost no one. The story circulated quietly among those close to him, but never reached a wider audience. Whatever he saw that night remained a private terror for most of his life. The following 50 years produced only scattered and largely unverified reports from the surrounding region. Then, in the 1980s, something began to change in Walworth County. In the fall of 1989, a farmer named Scott Bray noticed a large, strange-looking dog-like animal on his property. It had left tracks in his cow pasture, unusual ones, wide and deeply pressed into the soil. Bray couldn't identify the animal and reported the incident, but it drew little attention at the time. That same year, a local man named Russell Just reported seeing an upright creature near an overgrown area in the region. He heard brush rustling, then watched the beast step out from the undergrowth and take several unsteady steps forward on its hind legs before he turned and ran. When he looked back, the creature had dropped to all fours, but it was not following him. It wandered in the direction of Bray Road and vanished. The encounter that would ultimately crack the story open happened on a fall evening in 1989. Lorian Drizzy was 24 years old, working as a manager at a lounge called the Jury Room in Elkhorn. She was driving home along Bray Road in the early hours of the morning, somewhere around 1:30 a.m. when she saw a shape crouching at the side of the road. Her first instinct was that it was a person. She slowed down. The figure was kneeling in the roadside, hunched over something. As her headlights swept closer, she realized she was looking at nothing remotely human. Lori described the creature as having gray-brown fur covering its entire body. Its face was long and snouty, like a wolf's. Its ears were pointed. Its eyes glowed yellow, and she later noted that the glow was not a reflection of her headlights. The creature was holding something between its hands, what appeared to be roadkill, and it was holding it palms up, the way a person might cup an object. Its arms were jointed like a human's. Its fingers were clawed but distinctly finger-like. She estimated she was no more than 6 feet away from it. When the creature turned and stared directly at her, she pressed the accelerator and drove away. By all accounts, when Lori later told her story, she was consistent across every detail. She maintained it for years. When asked about what she believed it was, she said she didn't believe in werewolves, but she believed something could be conjured up. This speaks to the depth of what she felt she had seen. Around Christmas of 1990, an 11-year-old girl named Heather Bowie had her own encounter. She and some friends had been near the woods when they encountered something large and wolfish that gave chase. The pursuit broke off at the tree line. Bowie didn't know anyone else had seen a similar creature. She didn't learn about Lori and Drizzy's account until later, when she found herself on a school bus talking about what had happened. The bus driver, a woman named Pat Lester, passed the account on to a reporter she knew. Pat Lester happened to be Lori and Drizzy's mother. This was a small, tight-knit community, and word of the strange beast was spreading fast. The most dramatic encounter in the entire history of the Beast of Bray Road happened on Halloween night, 1991. Dorothy Gibson was 18 years old. She was driving along Bray Road near DeLavin, Wisconsin, in foggy conditions, heading home in the late evening. As her car approached the intersection with Hospital Road, her right front tire lifted off the ground, as if she had rolled over something large. She drove another 50 feet, then stopped and got out to check the road behind her. There was nothing visible on the pavement. She moved toward the back of her car, looking around, trying to understand what she had driven over. Then something came running out of the darkness. It came at her fast. She described it as larger than any dog she had ever seen. It ran upright and then shifted as it closed the distance. She made it back into her car and gunned the engine. As she accelerated, the creature reached the rear of her vehicle. In the chaos and the rain, it grabbed onto the trunk or jumped onto it. She could feel the car respond to the weight before the creature lost its grip and slid off. When she later had her car examined, investigators found claw marks on the trunk. The gouges were deep, parallel, and up to 5 inches long, bending the metal inward. The marks were examined by investigators who ruled out the possibility that they had been made with tools. The claw pattern was consistent with a large animal. Word of what happened to her reached a local newspaper called the Walworth County Week. The paper assigned a reporter named Linda Godfrey to look into the growing number of stories. Godfrey, by her own account, went into it skeptically. She was a journalist, not a paranormal enthusiast. But as she began interviewing witnesses, she found herself confronting people who did not appear to be fabricating stories. Their accounts were consistent, and their emotions were genuine. Several described the creature in nearly identical terms without having spoken to one another. Godfrey contacted the Walworth County Humane Officer and discovered he had been receiving reports for some time. His manila folder was already labeled. It simply said, "Werewolf." He had a stack of reported sightings and unusual occurrences he hadn't known what to do with. Nobody had asked him about them until Godfrey knocked on his door. She published her article on December 29, 1991. The headline treated it as a local curiosity, with an illustration of a cartoon wolf eating roadkill. The paper did not expect the story to have legs, but soon, Godfrey was receiving calls from people who had been holding their stories privately for years. One man came forward to describe an encounter his father had experienced decades earlier, near Bray Road, with a creature bearing all the same characteristics. He had never told anyone outside the family. Reading Godfrey's article was the first time he understood that someone else had seen the same thing. As reports accumulated, a picture emerged of how wide the sighting range actually was. The creature had been reported not only along Bray Road in Walworth County, but in neighboring Racine and Jefferson counties. A woman in the region reported the creature trying to break into her home. She said it returned and later attacked one of her horses, leaving a deep wound that extended across the animal's back from one shoulder to the other. The only physical evidence left behind was a footprint. It measured over 12 inches in length. The Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources was brought in to investigate. When officials interviewed the woman, they concluded based on her description that the intruder was a large, unidentified animal. No further identification was made even as the sightings continued. In August of 1999, a woman and her family were driving along Bray Road when they saw something at the roadside that initially resembled a deer. It was approximately 5 feet tall and had glowing red eyes. Unlike a deer, it did not startle. It turned and began moving steadily toward the car, approaching to within roughly 50 feet before the family drove away. In November 2006, a local worker named Steve Kruger was parked in his truck on a road near Holy Hill, Wisconsin. He was there after removing a deer carcass from the pavement. He was filling out paperwork in the cab when the truck shook. He initially ignored it. The truck shook again, harder. He looked out the rear window and saw a shadowy figure standing at his tailgate. He described it as large, dark, and upright. The figure was apparently engaged with the deer carcass in the truck bed. Kruger drove away. He later told the story on several television programs. His account remained unchanged in every detail. In February 2018, a witness in the town of Spring Prairie, also in Walworth County, reported seeing a large, upright, hair-covered creature. In July 2020, a resident in the nearby town of Leon reported seeing a similar figure near a creek, moving on 2 legs and apparently pursuing wildlife. The theories that have been proposed over the decades fall into a few broad categories. The most common explanation from skeptics is misidentification of a known animal. Gray wolves do occasionally appear in Walworth County and surrounding areas, though they are uncommon in southern Wisconsin. A bear suffering from mange can appear dramatically different from a healthy bear, moving awkwardly and presenting an unfamiliar silhouette. Linda Godfrey's investigation became a book published in 2003 titled The Beast of Bray Road, Tailing Wisconsin's Werewolf. She followed that with additional books on what she termed the American Dogman phenomenon, a broader pattern of similar sightings from states across the Midwest. It was Godfrey who coined the name Beast of Bray Road, and it was her work that transformed a local story into a nationally recognized piece of folklore. Bray Road itself still looks exactly like what it is, a quiet stretch of Wisconsin farmland with cornfields on one side and dark tree lines on the other. The kind of road that feels completely ordinary at noon and considerably less so at 1:30 in the morning. Whatever has been seen on that road, whatever stood at the edge of the cornfields and turned its glowing eyes toward the headlights of approaching cars, it left an impression on everyone who encountered it that did not fade with time. The descriptions stay consistent. The fear stays consistent. Bray Road is still there. And so is the beast. Subscribe to Paranormal Depths for the strangest and most compelling cases from around the world.